It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders, as you can see, taking his Steelers Afternoon Drive. Alan, what's going on?
Just leaving the facility, and absolutely nothing happened today, Smitty.
Absolutely nothing. Yeah, no comments were made.
No news, no nothing. Just a slow, bit boring day at the office. Now, apparently Naji Harris thinks that you're all stupid. Basically, that the
That's
idea,
one translation, yeah.
The idea that Matt Canada is responsible for the entirety of the Steelers' offensive problems is silly to him, basically. I'm paraphrasing. You can read. Nate, can you just bring the story up? I think you probably should just read the whole brick of Najee's paragraph about Matt Canada, and I'll sort of set it up, right? So Najee, talking to the media today, said that there was a players' meeting on either Monday or Tuesday. He actually couldn't remember exactly what day it was. Basically, sort of echoing what Mike Tomlin said on Tuesday morning, that the team wasn't physical enough. He didn't think the team had the right mentality, and that they got away from that mentality of dominating the line of scrimmage and being the more physical football team that was successful for them down the stretch last year. And he felt like that was something that they, as players, needed to fix. And he got asked a follow-up question, said, were the coaches involved in that, or is that just you guys? And, he kind of laughed and said, coaches, man, y'all got to quit asking about the coaches. It's not the coaches, it's us.
Yeah, coaches only can coach. At the end of the day, we've got to do what we have to do. I see everybody talking about this coaching staff, about play calling. Brody, y'all understand how football works. Coaches can only coach. We've got to execute the plays. We're not trying to point the finger at all. This is not the time to do that. It keeps being a conversation that gets brought up or not even brought up, but things that are talked about so much. It's crazy. We have to execute at the end of the day, no matter who is back there calling the plays. I honestly say that we're not doing that right now. Not coaches. It has nothing to do with the coaches, just players. We have to play better.
And then he went on to say that everybody runs the same damn plays anyway. So, what are you going on about? And, I feel like that, to me, is the most true thing that Naji Harris said. Look, in the NFL, if you're a really good coaching staff and you have really good coordinators and you do, a ton of film study and you're just, the smartest, most prepared team, you can fool the other team maybe 15% of the time. That's it. The best of the best. The absolute, if you played Kyle Shanahan, the offensive coordinator, Sean McVay, the head coach, and Andy Reid, the quarterback's coach, that all-star team of offensive coaches is not even going to fool the defensive quarter of the time. All the rest of the time, you just have to execute. It doesn't matter if you fool them or not. Most of the time, the defense knows what's coming. Most of the time. We've talked about that here before. TJ Watt can call out run pass almost 100% of the time, and he can probably call out the exact play that's coming about 50% of the time. He knows what's coming all the time. You can't hide it from him. They only have 80 offensive plays. You can't. It's not that hard to memorize them if you're a defense. If y'all played Madden before, but after the third time, you look over at the guy's playbook, he's about to run zone blitz again. There's only so many plays in the playbook. Well, there's only so many plays in the real life playbook. That's how it works. You have to execute the plays at a high level consistently, or it does not matter what plays you call. And the Steelers, go look at the tape. They are leaving plays all over the field. Basically everyone other than Naji Harris. It was a great timing and sort of an accident that he is the guy that he usually talks on Wednesdays, but man, he's the perfect person to have that conversation with, because I was a lot on with Chris Carter yesterday and we did our grades, and Najee's the only one passing right now. The whole rest of the team, they're not executing. They are not blocking their assignments. They're not doing their job, offense and defense. You can't say there's 49 players dressed in that game. You can't say more than 45 of them did what they're supposed to do even half the time. Like, that's 100% of what this problem is. Now, what Mike Tomlin said yesterday, and we talked about yesterday, is, okay, yeah, it's still the coach's job to get these guys to perform, and there's some truth to that. Like, I think there's some things that are going wrong in terms of the application of specific personnel, in terms of, like, keys and being aware of things, how much they've repped things. But, man, at the end of the day, there are a lot of players wearing black and gold that are playing below the expectations for their play all the time. It doesn't have anything to do with anyone other than them.
Yeah, and I guess, like, for me, that's, I don't want to say an acceptable thing if we're talking about a small sample size like just this season, but in terms of this offense, like, it's been really bad for a really long time now. So, like, whether if it is just execution, how are we going on this long of a stretch now for this offense being this bad just based off execution?
Well, I think Najee's point was that it wasn't that bad. Like, that they had success in the second half of last season, that most people reasonably expected them to continue to carry over into this season. And if they had just done that, now look, are they going to be a top 10 offense? No. Are they going to be a top half offense? Maybe. But are we going to be having these conversations? Absolutely not. Would they have beaten Houston? Probably. Like that, like, I don't think he's saying that they're just some execution away from being great, but they're some execution away from accomplishing their goals, and that's probably good enough.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, I just think it goes, for me at least, like, looking at the larger body of work here. I know we were breaking it down a little bit, looking at, I mean, I know that the stats are out there. I know that you're aware of them. 400 yards hasn't happened in 40 games. They've only scored 30 points 4 times since 2020, the start of the 2020 season, which that's, I guess, not 2020. You shouldn't even include that because Canada wasn't the OC. So one time in 2021, one time last year in 2022. I mean, all that information is out there. Again, like, understanding that they're not going to be an offense that puts up a ton of points. It's more about controlling the clock and wanting to run the football. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where the expectation is for this offense. Like, what is reasonable expectation for this offense to get to?
I don't think they care how many yards they get. I don't think they really care how many points they get. They just want to win the game. Like, I think that's they need the offense to be what it needs to be to keep them in games, and it was that last year. Like, this, like, I don't think the statistics matter if you can play. Like, look, we know how games against the Baltimore Ravens go, right? Is somebody going to score 40 points on Sunday? No. Like, I'm damn sure that neither team is going to score 40 points on Sunday. No chance of that happening. Not going to happen. We know how Steelers Ravens is going to go, right? And so, like, you don't need to be that offense this game. Now, maybe when you play the Bengals, the Bengals have been terrible this year, but, like, okay, let's say they play the Bills. Okay, let's say they play the Bills or the Chiefs. You would say going into that game, like, okay, if you don't have an offense that can score 40 points, then you're going to be limited to how good you can be, right? Like, if the Steelers offense was just what it was at the end of last season or a little bit better, we would be talking about them as, like, oh, they're probably a playoff team. Yeah, they're not as good as the Chiefs. Yeah, they're probably not as good as the Bills. Like, yeah, if the Bengals get right, they'd probably have a hard time with them, but they could beat almost everyone else. Like, that's what we would be saying about the Steelers team. And instead, we're talking about them like, oh my God, Mike Tomlin's on the hot seat, which, by the way, is nonsense. But I mean, I guess we can get there too eventually. But yeah, I mean, like, I think the whole conversation about the team is very different if they're just the offense that we thought they could be, instead of, and that they have been, instead of what we've seen.
Why do you think that that's, like, the, I don't want to say goal or like, why aren't they aiming higher then as an offense to be a better offense? Like, why are they okay with just playing complimentary, doing just enough to win football games, seemingly?
I don't think they have enough talent to be a lot better than that. I mean, to be perfectly honest, like, Kenny's not a good enough quarterback. Might he be someday? Sure. But, like, the common denominator between all those teams that we just talked about is great quarterback play. I mean, like, now, if Kenny was playing great and they were still not getting those results, then I think you would look at the scheme and be like, hey, something here's wrong. But they're not. Like, he's not. And it's not that there are not plays for him to make. Sometimes that's true. That's always the case sometimes. But by and large, there are plays out there to be made that are just not being made that most NFL quarterbacks would be making. And that most NFL teams, like when, like, for example, like there's a naked bootleg in that game. I mean, the Steelers used to run naked bootlegs with like old ass Ben, where he could like barely move, right? He would still, like, up until maybe like the last 2 years after the elbow surgery, he really didn't do much more of that. But up until then, he was still running naked boots all the time. How many times do you remember Ben getting hit before he could turn around on a naked bootleg? Like, never. I never remember that happening. So like, there's a lot of failures at a lot of levels, but like I don't know, what are you supposed to say? Like, oh, well, they suck at that, so you can't call naked bootleg. Well, if he can't call anything they suck at, he can't call anything, because they've found a way to screw up just about every play in his playbook. And like, again, at some point he needs to own the quality of the play of his players. But I think a lot of people get mad at the scheme. And like, the other part of it is the biggest and best criticism of Canada's scheme is that it's overly simple. Like, the passing concepts are overly simple. They're old-fashioned. They're not cutting edge. But if you're screwing up overly simple over and over again, how do you go to more complicated stuff? Like, I don't know how, if you're the leader of a team and your team keeps screwing up the assignment you give them, you don't go give them a harder one, right? Like, if anything, you're trying to give them the easier one. I really do think that Naji is right in one way, and this is sort of an indirect criticism at Canada, but it also just has to do with how the games have gone, is that they've gotten away from the run too much. They need to be an offense that runs the ball much more. And they, partially because of the game situation, they haven't been able to. But I felt like we had a long conversation earlier this year about whether they've been getting away from the run too much too soon. And I think that is definitely a thing that's happened. I think that maybe they got a little bit high on their own supply from the preseason, that they thought they were going to be a little bit more successful as a passing offense, and they felt like they could change their personality a little bit, and I don't think that's turned out to be the case.
I appreciated the high on their own supply in there. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, though, okay, so again, looking at the entirety, like the sample size, the players, if it is execution, that falls on the coaching staff in a different way, though, other than just the play calling and stuff like that. So, when do you start to take a look at, obviously, like top down in terms of Tomlin himself, obviously Canada, the roles as an offensive coordinator that aren't just the play calling aspect, and then like the position coaches as well?
I think you could make a change a position coach in season if you think you have a guy who's just wholly negligent. I was talking to Kenny Pickett today, and I was like, is there consistency in what the problem is? And, he's like, no, it's one guy on every play, but it's not the same guy, but it only takes one guy. And when you don't have a very talented offense, which, I don't expect the Steelers to say, but they do not have a very talented offense. You can't have 10 guys pulling in one direction and one guy going a different one. You don't have enough talent to make up for that. When the Steelers had Ben and Lev Bell and AB, and they had an offensive line full of undrafted free agents, it didn't matter if sometimes somebody didn't get blocked. Ben would just chuck one up and say AB's down there somewhere, or Lev Bell would break 4 tackles. Like, they don't have enough talent to erase mistakes. And so when they're making mistakes, they're amplified all the time. And I think that, again, goes back to, like, if I was leading this offense, I would be trying to make it simpler and not more complex. So I really don't, again, like, I don't know what you want Matt Canada to do, other than I think mostly people just want their pound of flesh at this point. So I got to ask you, though, like, from a fan perspective, what is your reaction to hearing Naji Harris say that way?
I don't expect him to say anything differently openly, but again, like, it wasn't even like he was asked, right? Like, he just said it without, I think that there's definitely truth within what he's saying. Again, I just feel like I don't know if he was trying to absolve the coaches at all from any type of blame and put it all on the players, because I definitely wouldn't agree with that either. Like, I think even if it does fall on the players, again, that just falls on the coaches in a different way, and getting away from the play calling stuff. I don't think he's, lying or anything like that. I don't know. I think that it's kind of a closed-minded view in just looking at his situation.
I think it's hard to look at the tape and see mistakes, glaring mistakes, and say, well, this is a coaching problem. Like, as a player, where, you're just watching guys screw up over and over, guys running into each other in the backfield and guys, how could you say that's play calling? Like, you just,
yeah.
You can't logically get there when you're watching the mistakes happen over and over again and saying, like, man, what are we doing here? I do think that if Naji Harris was if we fed Naji Harris some truth serum, I do think there would be some criticisms of Matt Canada. I think he wants the ball more, and not just because he's selfish and he wants the ball more. I think he correctly recognizes that the running game is the only thing they might be good at, and they probably need to emphasize that more than they have been. He was directly asked about the 4th and 1 play call, about whether, he would like to have the ball in that situation. He said, I'm not going to answer that. And, I think that's very telling that here, a direct question, okay, hey, I got nothing for you there. But he, on another place, like, not even really asked about the coaching staff, just sort of very tangentially bringing them into the conversation. He has this long speech to give about how it's just the coaches. So to me, that's like, okay, there are things that Najee Harris is seeing that the rest of us are seeing. Maybe they're not the same things, but there's things that are seeing that he would like done differently. And I would imagine that most players would agree with that. But I think when your job is to play football and you're watching the football not being played very well, I think it's really, really hard to put the blame anywhere else. Like, if you're a believer as a player that, like, what you do matters, that, like, you have a job to do and it's important for me to go out there and execute my job on any given play, then you can't watch people fail to do that over and over again and not say, well, there's your problem right there. I just think that's going to be a player's reaction to seeing that, even if, like you're saying, it's possible they could be put in better positions, they could have more knowledge, they could be better prepared, and those things are still at some level coaching. I just don't expect players to see it that way.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I would be curious about is, so in his mind, if it is an execution thing, and you look at offenses around the league, really, you would think that in Najee Harris's mind, they're executing the second most poorly in the league behind, save, I don't know how this is possible, the Cincinnati Bengals right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what he's saying, and it's not surprising to me that he has the same viewpoint as Mike Tomlin here. Tomlin's pretty good at getting his message across, but it's the support of that of Tomlin's ideas is not always so honestly undertaken. It really felt like that he was in passionate agreement that they played soft. He said they were soft. Like, he said that unprompted, said we were soft. That's, if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, that's the other thing, is that is who this team wants to be. They do not want to be the Kansas City Chiefs. They don't even aspire to be that kind of offense. They want to beat people up. They want to be physical. They want to dominate the line of scrimmage and control possession of the football. That is their goal. And so to be failing they don't care. No one in that locker room is like, can you believe we didn't get 400 yards again? Can you believe it? I guarantee no one has said that. But they're pissed about their physical performance at the point of attack in that football game, because that is what they are being paid to do.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I think that's where you're always going to see the discrepancy between the way that the fan base views it and the way the team sees it. The team just wants to win. If they win a game 3-0, at the end of the day, they're going to be not obviously happy with the individual performances and stuff, but hey, I think that they're just going to look at it as they won a football game, where the fans would be nitpicking every single detail of that game. Kenny, I wanted to ask you about Kenny. We saw in the portion that was able to be put out there that he's wearing a pretty thick knee brace on that knee with that bone bruise. I don't know how I feel about the situation, Alan.
That's right where I'm at. He said he feels good about being able to play on Sunday. He did, did they list him on the injury report as full or limited?
Oh, good question. I have it right here. He is a limited.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured. He didn't look very comfortable to me. They do this drill where they like do a handoff, and if you go up on the YouTube channel here, it's like 1 or 2 videos up. Najee's interview video here on the channel as well, so go check that out too. Yeah. But if you go up and you look, like they do this drill where they hand off, they practice a handoff with the running back, and then the quarterback is supposed to sort of carry their play fake like it's going to be a bootleg after doing the handoff, and a ball boy or an equipment manager or whatever tosses them another ball and they make a little throw on the move. So you kind of get like 2 reps in one, right? One as a handoff and then one as a toss. Kenny ran his at about 12%. I'm just estimating, like it does not look fluid or comfortable at all. So I don't know. I remember a conversation, like it was actually like a whole news cycle about when he was at Pitt. Pat Narduzzi usually likes his quarterbacks to wear knee braces in the game, and Kenny did not want to wear a knee brace. And at one point, he like took it off and didn't tell Pat that he took it off, and like refused to wear it. And it was like a thing. Like Pat got mad at him. They kind of had like almost like a blow up about it. And then that was like his freshman year, maybe into the start of his sophomore year. And eventually, like they came to an agreement where Kenny needed to learn how to slide, and then Pat was gonna he wasn't allowed to try to break tackles anymore. Like he could play without the knee brace, but he wasn't. But I mean, that's how passionate that Kenny was about hating playing with a knee brace. Now that brace that Pitt had him wear was on the right leg, so it's on his plant leg, which moves a lot less than his left leg. And honestly, don't feel like it was as big as the brace that he was wearing today. So he's going to be pretty darn uncomfortable if he's out there with that big knee brace on his left knee. He didn't look very mobile. I'm not sure this is a great idea.
I'm not either. I think we touched on it yesterday, so I don't want to like regurgitate a conversation, but I don't get it. Like you got the bye week the following week. Kenny hasn't been very good this year. Like you're not going to have a significant decrease in performance from Mitch. I don't know. I think you would. I'd be playing this one safe. I'd give him the 2 weeks and let him come back out against the Rams if it was my call.
I think I would be leaning out that way too. Obviously, it's not a decision I have to make right now. Mitch, he did get more than the usual reps. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that Mitch is going to be great, but he should be about what they've been getting. I don't know. We'll see. It gives Kenny the opportunity to, go be a hero. Like he's got that in him. Like I get it. Like you don't want to kill his spirit, right? Like you want to let him be him. I get it. I just, he couldn't survive a game against the Ravens last year when he was fully mobile. We're talking about Broderick Jones making his first start. We're talking about there was 4 offensive linemen on the injury report today. Is an immobile Kenny Pickett going to survive a game against the Baltimore Ravens? Like that to me is the real concern.
I guess I'm not saying this is a positive, but it's kind of making a joke here. Hey, he can't bail on the pocket if he can't get out of the pocket with that knee. So
he's definitely going to be a more consistent pocket passer if he's hobbling along with a knee brace. I'll agree with that. Might not be the worst thing in the world for him. I mean, maybe you got a good point there. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. I wouldn't want to sit in there against Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen and not be able to move. I'll tell you that much. I don't care how many pads I'm wearing in practice.
Yeah, I think too. I mean, we talked about if it is Mitch, we were talking about this. So especially if you're talking about a Kenny that can't move around at 100%. But you just mentioned with it being Broderick Jones' first start, we'll see if Daniels comes back, or if it's going to be Nate Herbig again, who gave up 6 pressures in this game, 6 QB hurries. Like they should. The emphasis here, regardless of who's at quarterback, should be to run the football. But man, if it's an immobile Kenny as opposed to Mitch, that's 100% got to be the case.
Yeah, they've got to find a way to have more success running the ball. Yeah, they've been okay. Like, it's not like they've been terrible. I think Najee's right. They have not. I just don't think they've had enough. They haven't had enough consistent success as an offense where they've been able to sustain drives. Like, they're punting too often to run the ball, and then they're behind, and then they can't anymore. And the one thing, and I understand I'm beating a dead horse here, but I'm going to take a few more swings. They cannot continue to fail on the opening drive of the game.
Yeah.
Every single time. Like, if you're acknowledging that you're going to struggle to protect your quarterback, if you're acknowledging that you're not built to come from behind, if you're acknowledging that the one thing that you might be good at is running the ball, you have to start faster. You have to be able to capitalize on something. You got to do something different. You got to put something in, give them a wrinkle. Remember when the defense put Minka Fitzpatrick in at boundary corner and the Browns had never seen that, and Deshaun Watson threw the ball straight to him? Like, where's that from the offense? Like, if you want to talk about play calling, I think that is a very legitimate criticism, that we are seeing zero creativity in the game-to-game changes about the offense, and especially in the way it plays out on the first drive of the game. If you're going to surprise somebody, that's the time to do it. Like, pull out the stops. Like, I feel like they're trying to warm up to it every game, and you can't do that. And, I don't think that Matt Canada is a very good play caller in terms of, like, his feel for what is going to work when. And, like, that is purely feel, right? Like, just, like, it's a guessing game. And I don't think he's very good at it. But that is an area where you could have multiple inputs on that. Like, hey, it's 2nd and 10. We ran the ball. We got 3 yards. Now it's 3rd and 7. We have play call fast. Like, there's no time for anyone else to be involved. There's no reason that Mike Tomlin isn't getting involved, that Kenny Pickett doesn't have input, that the leaders of the offense, like Mason Cole and Naji Harris, that group has to come together and come up with a script that will actually work for one freaking time. Like, It's essential. It's essential.
Yeah. I'm glad you took a couple more swings on that dead horse that we continue to beat on here, because man, yeah, the opening scripts have been, I mean, we can complain about the offense as a whole, obviously, but the opening scripts are what really get me.
What should happen is the offense dictates the play, right? The offense says, we're going to do this, and then the defense has to adjust. The offense should get worse as the game goes on, as what they're doing becomes evident to the defense, and the defense is able to respond to it. The Steelers' offense is the only offense in the world that gets better as the game goes on. Like, it's bonkers. It should never happen that way.
Speaking of the offense, a lot of these names are going to be on here. I want to bring up today's injury reports. Pressley Harvin still DNP with the hamstring thing. Kenny Pickett, obviously, with the knee. Patrick Peterson and Isaac Seumalo were just resting players. Cole Holcomb, in addition to the injury report, we knew about Dan Moore Jr., who's already been rolled out. James Daniels still dealing with a groin. Pat Freiermuth, we know, isn't going to play. Leal working his way back from the concussion. Chuks Okorafor with the elbow popping up as well. So Okorafor and Cole Holcomb seemingly coming out of nowhere, popping up today.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks in a row for Chuks on the injury report. It's pretty clear that he's playing through something with that elbow. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I mean, he's been not the Chiefs of old in pass protection, man. He's never been a dominant run blocker, but he has been a dominant pass protector, and we just have not seen that from him. I think it's pretty clear that he's been playing through some kind of injury, and that it's impacting him. He has not been the guy that, really no one on that offensive line, I think, has played up to their expectations outside of maybe we've started to see Seumalo turn the corner in that regard these last 2 games. But Chuks really struggling as a pass protector has been an under-talked about part of this offensive struggles, I think. And I think it's pretty clear it's mostly because he's not very healthy right now. So yeah, that day for Seumalo, Chuks out, Dan Moore out, James Daniels out. So that leaves an offensive line of like Broderick Jones, Nate Herbig, Spencer Anderson, and Dylan Cook. Yeah, so like that'll be fine. Let's go
Let
put
Dylan
banged
cook.
up. Let's go put banged up Kenny out there behind that and see what the Ravens do to him. Like, and obviously,
You know what?
I expect a lot of those guys to be fine to play. Like Seumalo obviously will be fine. I expect Chuks to play. It would not surprise me if James Daniels is able to play this week. But man, like, yeah, it's not
That
good.
we know with the way that things go, with that offensive line, the Steelers would beat the Ravens 19-16 in overtime.
I mean, we're not at
We'll see
prediction
where it
time,
goes.
but I still feel very good about the Steelers' chances in this game.
I mean, a division game at home. Like, I'm not going to disagree with you. I'm not giving my prediction yet either, but I don't know.
Ravens got some good news today. They got cornerback back.
Marlon Humphrey.
Yeah, Marlon Humphrey. They're playing well. There's no question about that.
I actually wanted to bring up something. This is the last thing I wanted to bring up. It came through as we've been recording, so you probably haven't seen this, but Patrick Queen said it's personal every time he plays against Mike Tomlin. When I was on their sideline my rookie year, Mike Tomlin was looking at me, yelling at me, saying, "You're not a Raven. You're not supposed to be there. You're not one of them."
Okay.
Where in the world did that come from? And then he said, "I don't care if he was joking. I don't care if he was serious. At the end of the day, I'm on your sideline. You're telling me I'm not a Raven. It's kind of disrespectful." He spoke very highly of Patrick Queen in his availability on Tomlin Tuesday.
He did. I don't know. Everybody likes Mike Tomlin. That's even the Ravens. Like the Ravens are the one team that you will generally not like. Most NFL coaches, if you stick a microphone in front of them, you'll be like, say some good things about Mike Tomlin. You'll get like a paragraph. I feel like John Harbaugh, you get like 2 sentences. Like I don't think it's personal. I just think those are two teams that I saw a great interview with Giannis Antetokounmpo, and he said like I can't be friends with guys that I play against. Like I can't work out with you in the summer, and we can't like go fishing together or like our wives be friends, and then me go try to like dunk on you and end your career. Like I can't fake that. Like I can't do it. And like I feel like the Steelers and the Ravens keep it that way, man. Like they're the last real. Like there are NFL rivalries, but every NFL rivalry anymore comes with that kind of like wink and the nod, like, oh yeah, we all know we're still bros. Like, hit me up on Instagram. The Steelers and the Ravens, I don't know that it's real. I think it's mostly just self-manufactured. Like, I don't think there's any real animosity, but I think they keep it. They keep it in their heart. Like, there's no friendships across that rivalry. I'm sure about that one.
I agree. But I also think that they do the best job of keeping it between the whistles, like for 60 minutes between the teams in the division.
Yeah. Yeah, it's never dirty with the Ravens. Like it's very rarely have things between the Steelers and the Ravens gotten dirty. And it's been physical. It's been it's been more violent than actual war at times. But I mean, like it's never been I've never felt like it was personal. It was always just a very intense but very professional rivalry. And I think that's sort of the way I would describe it. Is like they don't like each other. They're not trying to like each other. But it's not. I've never seen it get personal. It's always just been like, okay, those are the guys we don't like. Got it. Like, and I really appreciate it. There's been a couple guys I've talked to that have been both sides of it. Miles Boykin and Chris Wormley come to mind. And those are guys that have like a great appreciation for what this game means, and it's always great to talk to them about it. I'm gonna have to try to track down Miles Boykin tomorrow, Friday, because that's always a good conversation. These games mean a lot, man, and there isn't a single guy on. There's a lot of new players on this Steelers team that are not familiar with what Steelers Ravens is all about, but I think they're going to find out pretty quickly.
That they better. All right, Alan, tell the people where they can find you.
at @Saunders_PGH on X. PGH Steelers Now is the site's account, SteelersNow.com. Go there. Check out all the stuff that Naji Harris said, all the injury updates, all the news about Kenny Pickett, all the everything else from Derek Bell breaking down the film of that disgusting game against the Texans. So thank Derek for that. Subscribe to Steelers Now Plus and use my promo code Allen10, get 10% off an annual subscription. It costs like 3 Starbucks coffees. And we are giving away stuff. So like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are giving away a jersey. I got a hat. I got some socks. I got another hat. I got some beef jerky randomly we're going to give away too. So, like, we're all about it. Whatever. I'll scrounge up some other stuff too. I'm great at coming up with stuff. So when we get to 10,000, we're going to celebrate. We're going to have a concert. We're going to have a viewer appreciation day or whatever, and we're going to give stuff away. I got to tell you who our jersey is not today. We did defense yesterday. We can go offense today. It is not Naji Harris, who was the star of today's show. It is not Naji Harris, so there you go. It's also not Godwin Igwebuike, which I probably could not have come up with even if I tried. So that should not be a stuff. Throw that one out there as like a bonus, bonus for you.
Yeah, that would have been like a customized one. Maybe you'd have to like even DH date that. I don't even know how you.
I don't know that Godwin Igwebuike has a Godwin Igwebuike jersey. Like Josh Dobbs was complaining about not being able to get one of his. Like,
yeah,
come on.
All right. Well, I'm Zachary Smith, PGH. You can find me on all social platforms. As Alan said, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell here. Hit us in the comments as well. Leave us a 5-star review if you're listening somewhere that isn't YouTube, and head over to the site. Read all the work there. Nick, Alan, Derek, everybody on the team doing some great stuff. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for going on another afternoon drive with us. We will see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.